In this video, we're going to talk about the dashboard. So we'll cover each of the different widgets and talk about how they work and what they're made of and where the data is coming from. And then we'll also talk about the assign to dropdown and how it drives what's shown in each of the widgets. So the dashboard was designed to be a sort of home for Compass users. It should be a place where you can go to see your workload and upcoming to-dos so that you know what kind of actionable items are coming up at a glance. It should also include top-level metrics that are related to your participants in your own caseload if you have yourself selected, or other people in your agency based on what you have selected in this assigned to dropdown. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But really, the dashboard should be a place to inform users of top-level information and kind of stuff that's going to help you make daily decisions. So that's these metrics and the to-do list that you kind of have to consider what's coming up when you're deciding what you're going to do for a day. So we kind of picture users going here to see what they have to do, what's coming up soon, and how things are kind of shaking out for their current caseload. The access is controlled through the Compass Next permission. So if you can't see the dashboard, then you'll need to request access to the Compass Next permission, because using the dashboard is going to be pretty essential to transition navigating, just so that you can kind of keep track of your to-dos and have that organized in a really nice way. The Compass Next permission also controls the monitors, participants, and calendar modules in Compass Next, which all have some different similarities where they show data that is catered to you. At least that's true of the calendar and monitors. Participants is really just a search where you can search for participants within actually the entire state. It's kind of like a statewide search actually. But anyway, Compass Next permission controls all those different modules, so don't be surprised if you see all of those guys pop up in your nav tree when you are granted the Compass Next permission. So the assign to dropdown. The assign to dropdown drives the dashboard. Whatever is selected here is going to determine what is displayed in the dashboard. So if nothing is selected when you log in, then there would be nothing in the dashboard. But by default, it will select yourself from the list if you happen to be in the list. And if not, then it'll be blank, and then you'll have to select something. Or if you're a state user, it'll automatically select all NFT diversions, just because we assume that's what the state is going to want to be seeing when they log in. So to be included in the assign to dropdown, you need to be a supports coordinator or a transition navigator. So to be one or the other really depends on your user account and how it's set up. So if you have the add change NF transition permission, then you'll end up showing up in the transition navigator dropdown within the living CTA. And then if you're selected in a living CTA as a transition navigator, we know you're a TN. So at that point, we add you to this assign to list. So that is how you show up in this list. So if you're a new transition navigator and you just have the add change NF transition agent permission, and you're wondering why you don't show up in here, it's because you haven't been actually selected in a living CTA yet. You need to be selected as a participant's actual transition navigator to show up in this list. And then also you need to be active. So if you're in the user account and you uncheck the user enabled checkbox, then you will be removed from this list. And then other things that are included in this list are supports coordinators. This is only true for waiver agencies. SILs won't see any supports coordinators since you don't employ them. And supports coordinators are added to this list when SC initials are added to the user account. So if you happen to be a supports coordinator that actually has that NF transition agent add change permission, you're going to want to get rid of that, because that's going to make the system think you're a transition navigator. That's going to override the fact that you have SC initials in. So be very cognizant of that. And then lastly, there's all Nifty / diversions as an option in the assign to dropdown, and that's going to be available to all agent users and it's going to be the first one in the list always. Otherwise, it's alphabetical. And that is the assigned to drop down of who's included and how you're included. But the next big part of it is understanding how it affects the dashboard and really all the other Compass Next modules. So based on what you have selected here, the widgets will actually change. So if you select a transition navigator, then you'll see Nifty related widgets, which is a to-do list that's full of Nifty and Nifty to-dos, and then different Nifty related widgets like outstanding Nifty notice to-dos, outstanding Nifty exception to-dos, waiting to transition, and Nifty caseload count. Versus if I had selected a supports coordinator, which neither of these two actually are set up that way because I was doing all these different Nifty training videos, but I have a separate app tab open here to show you what it's like. This is someone that I set up, that's my own name, as a supports coordinator, just as a fake thing to show you guys. You would see all of the SC related widgets. So my choice agencies are already, should be already used to this dashboard and experienced with it. I mean, if you're using Compass Next, I know some people don't, but if you're using Compass Next already, nothing has really changed about this dashboard besides that we replaced the syncing widget with a caseload count widget because it's a lot more useful than the syncing widget. But I'm not going to focus on these widgets since they have existed over time, but I just wanted to point out that difference that for waiver agencies who will have supports coordinators and transition navigators in their assigned to dropdown, they're going to be able to select either or, and based on that selection, they'll see different widgets. So supports coordinators can still work like normal, and transition navigators will have this new dashboard that's catered to Nifty stuff. So that's an important distinction. Another thing is each of the widgets themselves are dependent on what's selected here. So if I pick John versus Mary, John has different people that he's serving, so I'm only going to see to-dos that John has to do that are associated to participants where he's the current transition navigator in the living CTA. And then if I had selected Mary, I'm only going to see information where Mary is selected as the current transition navigator in the living CTA. So I'm talking about if I open up one of these to-dos and I go, I open up the participant summary and go to this participant. If I go to their Nifty record, which I should have used that go to link instead of the participant, if I go to this living CTA and go to the general node where the transition navigator is stored, you can see Mary demo is selected. So that's why Michael Scott's stuff shows up in Mary's dashboard. I know I got a lot of names throwing around, so let me just slow this down because I am logged in as John Demo, but John Demo is a part of Agent 99, so I can see all of the other users in my agency, and so Mary is a part of Agent 99 as well. So now that I've selected Mary, I'm going to see all the things or all the participants that are associated to Mary, which is done by selecting Mary in the living CTA for a participant. So hope this is making sense. So for the to-do list, we actually already covered a lot of this stuff in the to-do video, but I'll just kind of briefly go over the to-do list again. The to-do list is reminder date on the far left, and the to-do list is ordered by reminder date. Then the next field is the participant name. Then there's the to-do title, and then there is the to-do due date. Underneath, when there's this orange text, that is letting you know how overdue a to-do is. So this was due 112 days ago. That's not really realistic. It's just because I put in kind of crappy fake data. This one's due to 2 hours ago. So the hours go up to 48 hours, and then past that, it only shows days. And then you might be kind of like weirded out by why some of them have overdue and then some of them don't, when you would think the most overdue is at the top, and it would go down from that. It doesn't go by due date, it goes by reminder date. So if you're ever getting confused at the order, remember that the far left reminder date is what orders this to-do list. Something else about the to-do list is you can get to the participant summary from that by double clicking on a participant, and then the participant summary has all kinds of helpful links. You can go straight to the Nifty record. You can go to statewide search, the participant, you can add a to-do item, you can go and see their attached files, you can see kind of basic information about the participant if it's entered, and you can see a complete to-do list if what you're looking for isn't on this to-do list, because the difference is this to-do list shows all of the participants' to-dos, so you could see stuff that is due for the state. Maybe you're curious if Michael Scott has, an exception that needs to be reviewed. That's not going to show up on this to-do list, because this to-do list only shows stuff that the assigned to person has to do. And since you're never going to see state users in your assigned to, you won't see reviewed to-dos show up in here. So I hope this is all making sense. I feel like I'm saying a lot fast, but the user guide explains this all really well too. So if you have any questions, you can kind of refer to that as well. So another enhancement to the to-do list is that there is now pagination. So we used to only show 20 to-dos. Now you can see every single to-do that is associated to Mary Demo. So that's going to be all of the places where she is selected as the transition navigator. So that's all of her participants, and then all of the Nifty related to-dos and user added to-dos that are TN user added to-dos. If she was an SC, you would see all of the to-dos related where that person is marked as the primary supports coordinator. Then there's all Nifty/diversions. This is basically the same as what I was just saying, except that it also includes diversions in the list, whereas a specific TN, you're not going to see diversions that could be associated to a participant, because transition navigators don't typically complete diversion, so we left that out of their to-do lists. So if you want to see all of the Nifty things that need to be done and diversion things that need to be done related to your agency, you want to select this all Nifty/diversion. So that could be good if someone went on vacation and you're filling in for them and you're trying to see what's going on. Here's this, when there are more to-dos, this arrow lights up blue. So now I can see that there's more to-dos on the second page. Otherwise, they remain grayed out if there's not, more pages to go to the right. What else? So that's how the to-do list is basically filtered and how it works. There's also these other little things that you can do, these icons over here. I don't know if you just saw that loading button too. Something about the dashboard is it automatically reloads itself to make sure it always has the most recent data. So when that blue bar goes across, that's what it's doing. So back to the buttons. This is so that you can change the reminder date. You can snooze it. So if you click on this, you can snooze the reminder date by one of these times, or you can select your own custom date time. Then the next button is to complete the to-do. So this is different depending on the to-do. So since this one is a submit notice to-do, the way you complete it is by submitting the notice, which is done through the Living CTA. So that's why, let me get this reminder thing out here. That's why if you hover over this, it says go to Living CTA, because it's going to take you there to complete it, versus this user added to-do, which I fakely added. This is just completed by manually, checking the complete check mark. So if I check this one, it's actually just gonna, confirm that I do want to complete it, and it's going to complete it. And then an exception will take you to the exceptions record. So that's how the check mark works. It's, kind of different for each to do. And then this last one is the more options, which will either open up the detail view of the to-do, which is nice. You can see all the other details and change things if you want. And then to case file, which will take you to that participant's case file. and then participant summary, which will also open the participant summary if you don't like double clicking for some reason. So those are all the buttons, and this will expand it so it's completely taking over the screen. And this will jump back to the first page if you've gone several pages deep. Okay, so that's the to-do list. Next widget is, what do we want to do next? Maybe the caseload count. So it's very simple. Again, it's based on what you have selected here. So if it's all Nifty diversions, it's going to tell you all of, this is Nifty caseload count. So be careful. It's not going to tell you the caseload count of diversions because there's no place to put a user who's doing the diversion. Because we can't assume that it's the supports coordinator, and we know it's not the transition navigator. So don't get confused with that. The Nifty caseload count is just going to tell you all of the total number of people that have an NF transition record open for your agency. And if you had selected John or Mary, who are TNs, it's going to show you their specific caseload count, how many people they're managing. So you can see Mary's got a lot more than John, and so that might be helpful for supervisors or just agency staff to help distribute the Nifty people so that one transition navigator isn't working a lot harder than another. So to be considered open, you just need to have a closed notice that isn't sent to the state. So if a closed notice is added, you're still going to be considered in that caseload count, but as soon as it's sent to the state, they're going to be considered closed and they will fall off your caseload count. What else? So next, waiting to transition. Waiting to transition, this is basically a list of everybody that has a complete notice and eligibility, but there isn't a transition record added yet, transition results record added yet, sorry. So if you've been approved as complete by the state, then we're assuming that that participant is going to transition. So that's why they fall into this category of waiting to transition. And so this is kind of a reminder that you have some work to do. You need to go add a transition record, or if they're not going to transition, then you're going to need to close them. So an actual detail view of who makes up this number is available in the monitors module. I'm not going to go over that in this video, but if you watch the monitors training video, you'll be able to see that. So this is just a count. As soon as a transition record is added, the person will fall off of this count. So that's that. Then, and again, it's all driven by, what you have selected in the assign to. So John must not have anyone that's waiting to transition because look, he even has a to-do that says send transition results to state. So that person, if I deleted that record, then one would come up there because that means that I don't have a transition record added yet, and I did have a complete notice. Okay, so let's go back to this one. So we have some more data and talk about the outstanding Nifty notice to-dos. So outstanding Nifty notice to-dos is just a simple graphic where it's showing you how many notices are not yet sent and how many notices are not reviewed. If nothing falls into either category, this graph will be just completely empty. If you hover over it, it'll tell you the count exactly, so you don't have to try to figure out what it is in the graph. So that's how you can see that. And this is, again, based on whatever you have selected to be assigned to. So for the whole entire agency, this is saying that there are 6 participants that have not yet sent notices. So that means kind of letting you know that you have some notices that you need to submit. And then not reviewed, this is telling you that you have 2 notices sent to the state and you're waiting for the state to review 2 of your notices. And then the exception, outstanding Nifty exception to-dos tells you the same thing, except that there's another category. There's the needs info category. Otherwise, this works exactly the same. If you hover over it, it'll tell you the count. And then it's the same idea where this is telling you there are 3 not yet sent exceptions that you need to send. there's one that's not reviewed that you've sent to the state that you're waiting for them to review, and then one that needs info that you need to update and send back. So these are kind of nice because if you're looking at it agency-wide, you can see what's going on with your agency and what you need to do. And then you can also do that with your own caseload, which is really nice because it's only highlighting the stuff that you need to do. It's not going to show you the stages where you've already completed something because that would just kind of be silly. You can also expand these guys to take up the whole page. Not really sure why you would, but you can. Maybe if you can't see it very well. And then that is a full explanation of all of the dashboard to-do widgets. If you have any other questions, I would check out the user guide. There's a lot of details in there that maybe I missed going through this video, so check that out.